Hi, Care.
Hi,
I
Star.
think I
How
got
you doing?
it.
Woo! Got it. We are officially recording.
We're going to be talking about love today.
Love is in the room. It's in the house.
You know what? Love should never not be in the house.
It should always be in love. Love should be in the house. It
I
should be in the
know.
floorboards, the ceiling, the attic.
Gary, I'm so happy you're here today. We're going to have a chat about love, about what's going on with, I think love's under siege. And I think all my friends, my healer friends, you included, we're gonna change one person at a time, right? Help them out.
That's the only way we do it. We can
I know.
only change the world one heart at a time.
I know. So Gary, you have been a dear friend of mine for years and wrote the foreword of my book and deck of cards, and I'm a huge fan. So I'm excited to talk a little bit today. I mean, I've had you on many different things in my world, but today I really want to talk about like what is going on with this. Like, love is like a topic that, you know, we'll have many late conversations into the night with you, me, and my husband when we're like hanging out in the living room talking about like
I know
how we got to figure things out. But it's like there seems to be a disconnect. And
Yeah.
it's like what, like a collective disconnect
Yes.
around understanding what love is and what it isn't and how it really works. And I'm curious to know, like, do you see something on a very like macro scale, like the where the opportunity is, where the problem is? Like, I feel like self-love is the core.
Yes, one cannot love others if you don't love self, because it's all about whatever feelings we're giving ourselves, we are going to naturally give to somebody else. And I do feel that love is under siege. We live in a culture that is not relationship friendly. It is not relationship supportive. And sometimes it's not even relationship aware, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that's a good, like, aware. Yes. Like it's self-oriented, but in like, I think the collective is very self-oriented, but not necessarily even for the embetterment of self.
Yeah.
It's maybe the embetterment of material.
Yes, I think that's true. And, you know, I mean, for years, we've had this idea that if there's self-actualization, the top of the pyramid, what's the top? Is a fully authentic self-actualization. But self-actualization if you understand it from an attachment perspective, we were all given these rights and experiences and drives within us to create a bond with another people. That's a we, not a self. That's two
Right.
selves creating a we. The top should be, the self-actualization should be in service of a we. And if you do self without we, and you do that sort of development, then you'll be wondering, well, what's the next, umpteenth workshop that might get me over the hump?
Well, explain, because there might be some people listening or watching that don't understand the we idea.
Yeah.
So explain that.
Well, one of the things I noticed working with couples all these years is that when it's just two me's, there's usually a war. Show me a couple without a we and I'll show you a war. The we, there's this emergent energy between really loving couples that there is a we. That we means they are thinking of each other's. They are thinking of the other person's needs and interest on the same level as their own. They co-create experience. They step into each other's experience. There is an energy between them that binds them that is greater than the interest of each other. They are, what you will hear them, they will value the relationship above all things, right? Not in a codependent way, but in a way that balances, and they have this flow of energy that just comes in and out. They can separate, they can come together. That we is everything. If you have just two people pulling in their different directions, nothing good happens for the couple. And over a long time, or even sometimes a short time, you'll hear couples say something's off. And what they don't know is off is they have never created a we. They just thought it was a relationship was two me's living in the same house. And that's not the same thing.
How often do you feel like in your work that when that is identified, that there isn't a we, that it's, how often is it that it's the individual themselves not creating the we?
Well, we are, what I've always said is we are either early on, we're given a right to create a we or not. Almost every struggling couple, it lacks a we or a really healthy we. It's almost like when you emphasize the fact that, well, we have to create a we, it's almost like it's new terms for them. What's a we? And I often have to explain it. And
Yeah. So it's a me to a we, right? Is that how you explain it?
yes, like when I'm working with couples, except for twice in 13 years, these were unicorn couples.
There are unicorn couples out there, Gare.
Yes, there are unicorn couples
You
that
have
come
proof
in and
of
they
it.
just want to make it better and it's really good, but the rest come in when they're 5 steps away
Oh
from
my
the
God,
doorstep
that's so funny.
of an attorney, and or there's huge distance and they're doing their own life. It's usually fighting with, sometimes it's distance. One of the first moves, I mean, what partners will do when you're in the me, it's like, well, you are the problem, and there's blame, and there's all this blame game. My partner is the enemy. My partner is the problem. But in actuality, there's always the fact that they are always contributing and receiving. That it's like when you get down to most couples and their problems, and one blames the other and the other one blames the other one, it's almost chicken and the egg. You can track it back 10, 11 times. Well, he did this, well, she did this, and he did this, and she did this, and it goes back forever into an infinity loop. My first move is to show them what the pattern is and then say, now, what if you guys could be a team to make the pattern the problem, to make the pattern the enemy and not the partner? That's the first move of a we.
Yeah, that would be a whole new world. And I think put love first.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. Yeah, I mean, it's like half of your card deck would apply to this.
Well, I'm not sure what else does it. Love applies to everything. That's the whole point. That's why I picked love as the topic. And that's probably why you did too, right? Because what does love not affect and make better? Have you ever found a problem that love can't fix? Like true love.
Can't fix maybe the pit in the avocado.
Why is that a problem?
Why is that a problem? No,
that's not a problem.
No. I just go back to an old movie where somebody asked a character who's playing God, "Did you ever make a mistake?" And he said, "The pit in the avocado."
Oh my God, what movie was that? You
was,
lose me on
God,
the movie.
that was Oh God, George Burns.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Yeah, that was.
I
hilarious. I remember that movie.
It was a hilarious answer.
Actually, there's a lot of good ones in that one. But my husband constantly is like, he has an idiot savant's mind of being able to like remember movie lines. And so he's constantly telling me things in like a double entendre of a movie line. Yeah. And I never get it because I can't remember the lines like he does. Anyway, it's one of his.
Yeah. Since you go avocados, I threw that in.
Oh, well, yeah. So, I mean, why don't you tell us a little bit about like, the decisions that we make are often connected to our attachment style, which is created in most of it in parenting and in utero. But there's the feelings that are addressed, like the rights. And I'd love for you to share with us what those are. And then I want to have a little conversation around those.
Attachment styles or the rights? What were you asking?
I think the rights. I mean, if you want to say the 4 attachment styles, I think it's great because it's part of it, but it's really the rights that I think, and that's what your book is about. And I go back to it a lot, and your observations around the feelings, the rights are where we can really start, because I really do believe that love is under siege, and in America and across the world. And with this last year being so dangerously heartbreaking and grief stricken,
Yes.
people need to parent themselves out of it. They need to love themselves out of it, out of whatever negative moods have been created, or patterns that have been created. There's a lot of healing that needs to go on after incredible grief that's happened. And we can do it. We can do hard things, but we need to know some things to do it. So I believe, and why I have you here today is I want to talk about those feelings. I want to talk about how the attachment style created those feelings of observation for you. And then let's talk about that.
Okay. So attachment styles it's a nice little scientific thing that is how your brain is wired to create and maintain loving relationships, close relationships. I call it the rules for love that you got in your brain, right? Now, I mean, attachment styles explains a lot. I just got an email this week where a woman picked up the book and she was trying to figure out this recurrent problem. She goes, oh my God, I'm anxious and he's avoidant. Bingo, Yahtzee, lights start coming on. And now this is why we're always fighting. Well, years and years ago, a British psychiatrist by the name of John Bowlby noticed that after World War II, that children in orphanages who, because of the bombings had lost both parents, that even though they were well fed and quote unquote cared for and supervised was really the term, right? That some children were literally dying and no one could figure out. They're fed, they're clothed. They've got one person watching over 300 kids to make sure nobody gets into fights. What more could you need? And he said, what they needed, they were dying for us of lack of attachment. Now, after his death, Bowlby's wife let the world know that Bowlby wanted to use the word love, but it didn't sound professional enough at the time. So he used the word attachment. They were dying for lack of connection, attachment, love.
Mm-hmm.
And he was the first one to say that, human beings are wired for love. And we can have the list of air, earth, wind, and fire, and, all the 12 essential vitamins and all that. And there's something core that we need to live. Now, when they started to look, so the next question goes, how does this track? And his student, Mary Ainsworth, had this brilliant idea that if you take a little toddler from 10 months to 18 months, so year and a half old, and you separate them, originally it was from the mother, but later they had the same results doing it with fathers, right?
Mm-hmm.
That you'd find out exactly what sort of attachment style they've got. And it turned out to be brilliantly true. When you separate just a year and a half child from their mother or their caretaker or their parent, dad will do the same thing. That child will, they'll have a certain reaction, especially when the parent comes back in the room. That's called the reunion. And what they found out, there were 4 major ways, 3 of which kind of apply for most people, of way children respond. And what they found out is when you track those children for 20, 30 years, that style of connecting, of attaching will play out. This is by 1 year old, we have attachment styles. The first was the secure baby. Yeah, mom would leave the room and they'd be crying. But when when the parent came back, they would be consoled and they would go out and play with their toys again. So they played with their toys. Mom was in the room. Good. I can go explore. Mom leaves the room. No, come back here. But it was almost like, no, I don't like it when mom goes away. But I know she's coming back. When she does, we're going to have a good old time. And then they just calm down and they go out and play with their toys again. That's called secure. They're comfortable, loving being couple. They can separate without there being all sorts of drama, and they don't seek distance, and they don't create drama. But then there were the avoidant babies. Avoidant babies, they found out, had not been given a whole lot of consistent attention, right? They were mostly, not given attachment. And these babies look precociously wise. They were so mature for their age. They're on their own. They played with the toys. When mom left, it's like, oh, mom left. Isn't that interesting? And when they came back, there may be a little crying, but they just continue playing with their toys, and they look so mature. But really, they had learned that love wasn't going to be there. When they grew up, they become avoidant, dismissive of emotions. Their worst fear was depending on someone or being dependent upon in a relationship. I have to do it myself. The Marlboro mate. And then there were the anxious. The anxious, when mom left the room, the toys, the playing with the toys would stop. All hell breaks loose, basically. And when mom comes back, and this was the big thing they didn't quite expect, they wanted to be hugged, but they would also push away and they would hit. They were angry at the separation. And they would not be consoled. They would not go back and play with their toys. It's like they wanted the connection, but they were so mad about that separation. And what these babies got was inconsistent. Here, not here, here, not here. And some part of them had a fight response. Daggone, I'm going to lock this thing down. When they grow up, they become the anxious. Oh my God, why didn't you text me 5 minutes, after I texted you? I called you at lunch. What do you mean you're at a meeting?
Yeah.
They become the drama kings and queens of the universe. The fourth style was more of a clinical version they called disorganized. These babies were really hammered. These were very traumatized babies. They have both they want to have a connection and a huge flight response. They often fainted when children come in. Now, most of these babies wound up with severe attachment disorders or cluster B personality disorders, about 5%. So in the book, I tried to stay away from that. Anxious, avoidant, secure, that's what most of us with middle-class craziness have, right? A little version of that.
Yeah.
And now in the book, to your question, so those are the three attachments. I asked the question, how, what creates this? And that is funny. After I did an event back in 2012, I had all 20 of my clients that month ask me the same question. Could you do an event in which you reprogram a secure attachment in 2 or 3 days? Now, that's a tall order for 2 or 3 days. But I got to thinking, what if you did that? If you were to try that, what would you do? And I got to thinking, so it would have to, what restores a secure attachment is the issue of the game. If you're anxious or avoidant, and you've read a book like Attached, it almost feels like you've been screwed. And people get hopeless when they see, oh my God, I'm anxious or avoidant. It's like I was at a party in Marin where about 20 people had read the book Attached. And almost every one of them told me the same thing. They felt hopeless. And I go, why? They said, because when I found out I was anxious or avoidant, it felt like I had one guy said, it felt like I had an invisible sign over my head that said screwed. In other words, the book didn't give them a way back to being secure. Now, whatever tells a 1-year-old child that they are securely loved is the bottom line. It's, if you've ever heard that there's limiting beliefs or stories or identity, all that comes on at 3. This is up and running by 1 year old. What's running? The only thing that's running in a little small child, and everybody knows what it is, it's feelings. There's no identity in a 1-year-old. There's no limiting belief. There's no story. It's all feelings. And so I realized the bottom line for feeling secure or anxious or avoidant are 4 core feelings that come in the first 3 years of life. And these feelings give you permission slips or non-permission slips for love. And the 4 feelings are, was that child welcomed with joy? Were they worthy and nourished to have their needs met? Were they cherished and protected? And were they empowered with choice? And it just turns out that those 4 feelings are pretty much your natural GPS for love. What's really going on inside every couple is their brain is saying, well, do I feel very welcome? Do I feel worthy? Do I feel cherished and empowered? And if not,
So explain what each of those would mean. Like, what is it? What would an example be of welcomed with joy that we see regularly?
welcome with joy was exactly the way we started this fight. Hey, Star! Oh my God, there you are, man. That's that beautiful smile you have on your face right now is welcomed with joy.
Yeah.
It's like the little baby, when it comes in, and the first few months, oh, there's little Star. We are so glad you were born, and that's welcome with joy. It's when you wake up in the mornings and Jim says to you, good morning, gorgeous. Those are, or you walk in at night and you see, and you're going, God, you're a sight for sore eyes, Jim. Those are the moments of welcome with joy that we all want. We all want. And it turns out that's really the gateway. Think about that. You've got to really come and, oh, I'm so glad to have met you. We all want welcome with joy. And what it does, it gives that little baby a right. It's all feelings are permission slips. If you think about it, all feelings, if they don't have words, but if they had words, they'd only say 2 things, yes or no. Yes to an experience or no to an experience. That's a permission slip by default. Welcomed with joy says, I can, to that baby, oh, you're welcome to be here. Good to have you in life. I can be fully in my body. I don't have to be all up in my head. I don't, have to be, thinking spirituality and doing a spiritual bypass. And the world is a cozy oyster. Now, if the baby wasn't given welcomed, that rejection feels so bad that the baby tries to avoid the feelings and just unconsciously says, well, I better get out of the feelings and I better get in my head. So you get people that are, they are like embodied from here on up, from the head, chin on up.
Yeah. In their head, spinning, spinning, spinning.
Yeah. And from, I wasn't very welcomed into the world. I wasn't named for 3 weeks. You could almost have predicted a PhD from that.
Well, we're grateful for your PhD and your big brain.
It just wasn't, if you're not being, when you don't even have a name for 3 weeks, I said, okay, that explains why I never felt welcome. Right?
So is that part of the reason why like pediatricians always ask, or like, what's the story around your birth or things like that? Like sometimes doctors will ask, and I'm always like, where is that question? What is that for? But maybe that is it.
Yeah, that baby needs that connection. It's not an accident that baby needs an immediate connection. Put it on the mother's chest, and the little baby was, oh, there's that heart I heard all the last 6 months. Thank God I'm here. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine what it must be like coming out of this dark place and there are lights and there are people. I mean, it must be the shock of them because they are conscious in that last place. They're hearing things. Right. And, now the second feeling that comes on like 2 to 6 months, and I'm not saying that later experience doesn't affect these, it does, but the first templates come on. And that's welcomed and that's worthy of reaching out for your needs. Worthy is like, oh my God, if I cry, they're going to bring a bottle. And if they don't bring a bottle, mom's going to work on it, or dad's going to work on it. At some point in time, they're going to figure out I want the binky, not the bottle, or maybe it's the blanket this time. And there's this attuned, timely response, and that gives you the right to fully reach out for your needs and to expect life to be giving and taking, not all giving, not all resentment, give, give, give. So you get this beautiful feeling of worthy, and you can give and receive. It's okay to reach out for your needs. The opposite, if there wasn't that as attuned, timely responses, then it is you feel unworthy, and then it's hard taking, or you just reach out and give, and then wonder why you feel resentful, or you wind up being with a taker and wonder why you did. Well, because you didn't have a right to receive. So worthy to have your needs met. A lot of women get hit on this because of the caretaker stuff that goes along with the role, right?
Oh yeah.
Yes. And
I mean, and naturally, is there with that particular right, there's a natural, like male, female, traditional, like roles that happen? Do you see anything that is like more women or more men or?
I think, to be honest, I have found more women having more of a missing right to have their needs than men. Men tend to get more hit with missing right to exist. Not that women don't, but but there's no doubt that culture's played a part of it. The way we get sexual socialization. There's all, like I said, later experience can apply here, but there's no doubt that I've seen more women will be giver, and givers. They don't get their me time and all that stuff. There's no doubt in my mind that gender socialization plays
A role. Yeah.
yeah,
It's interesting to think about because they are applicable in your lifestyle and then, really everything. Because we navigate the world with this like
yes,
emotional, like lens that we see
yes,
things through, right?
yeah.
So what would the third one be?
The third one is cherished and protected.
Mm.
This is when it comes home first when the little baby first gets mobility. The first 6 months or so, the baby thinks, well, mom and I are pretty much one. But when they get mobility, a funny little realization happens. Some point their brain puts two and two together and goes, I'm over here, but she's over there. Dad's over there. Oh my God, I'm a me. I'm separate. Oh my God, what does that mean? Right? And they know they're a little vulnerable.
Mhm.
They need supervision because they're kind of small, right? They get that natively. So they're negotiating the right to be a me and a we, to go out and separate and explore their worlds. They just want to play with their toys by themselves. But the moment you leave the room, even though they don't want anything to do with you, you know what happens. Wow, they want to make sure they're seen, there's a we, they're cherished and protected. And it's the right to have this beautiful Goldilocks. We can go out and have our life and our dreams and come back to the home port of somebody's heart. Out, in. It's like breathing. It's got to be a Goldilocks zone. Not just all me. That's like Marlboro, mate. That's avoidance. Not all me, we. That's too much anxiousness. You could call it codependence. It's a beautiful Goldilocks where there's a me and a we. And then the fourth feeling, when the baby starts, after that, then you've heard of the terrible twos and all that. Between 12 and 24 months, they are negotiating. Once they find that they're a we, they're a me, then they have a right to create their experience. This comes under empowered, feeling empowered. Is it okay to be strong and weak, good and bad, right? And can I create my own experience, or does somebody else get to be the standard of that experience? Oh, mommy told me I'm a boy, I can only play with trucks, I can't play with dolls. Oh, I'm a girl, I can only play with dolls, I can't play with trucks. There's all sorts of ways somebody else gets to be the standard of experience. And then later on, when they grow up, they go, I always lose myself in a relationship. That's how that rolls. Or, I never feel, I just can't be vulnerable because, they weren't allowed to be fully human. The other feeling that comes on is having a voice. Be able to say yes and no, to have a voice, to be able to create your own experience, be able to have your wins left. So it's okay to assert as well, to say what I want. If you get welcomed and worthy and cherished and empowered, those four feelings and those rights tell the baby they're securely loved. And then the sixth right that comes on about age 3, their brain starts doing an inventory. It's smart enough to figure it out, and it comes up with a right. Am I loved or not? So you get a right to love and be loved right back. And if you got less than those four feelings, your brain will naturally opt for anxious or avoidance. So if you got somewhere along the line, unwelcomed or unworthy or not cherished or disempowered, your brain will naturally opt for anxious, avoidant. And all of them, both of them have a missing right to love and be loved in some way, a split right. And the key is not just giving skill sets, not just nonviolent communication, or we're working with limiting beliefs. The key is to get that brain to feel safe with the feelings. Give them back a feeling in the back of their brain and through their body. I am worthy. I am welcome. I am cherishable, and it's good to have, my own personal power, empowered. If you don't give back the feelings, you can't restore the attachment style. It's the feelings running. And when singles have the 4 feelings, they naturally give them the expecting. Unworthy people attract takers. Worthy people don't. Empowered people don't attract or put up with dominators, or they don't lose themselves. It's a simple equation. The reference feeling is driving it. You got to swap out the feelings.
And I mean,
Feeling change, everything else does.
I think that in our society today, there's something about the lack of education around feelings. Knowledge is important, but it's really the experience of ourselves that we're navigating life with that is driving. It's like that's the piece that matters. And these underlying belief systems are a part of it, but it's really the subconscious is running the show. And it's like how to get to understand yourself. You need to understand how you were raised, know enough to do it. It's like, I don't know. I just feel like I feel like now it's technology and ability to do things like this, like have conversations that normally would just be had on the phone, or live in workshops or educational institutions and stuff can be listened to. I feel like that's one of the reasons why I chose to do a long form podcast, because I think that there's yes, we are wanting like this attention focus that is rampant, the lack of a focus, like ADD is rampant everywhere. It's like we need to be able to engage with people in a meaningful way, and that's long form. It's like kind of having a conversation that we don't know where it's going to go. We're going to discover it. And yes, we have, worked in our areas of kind of, in that, like you and you're writing your book and me and writing mine. If you want to know it, you can just read the book. But if you want to hear it in a way and discover things, you have to have conversation like this, So I'm just curious what your thoughts are around these kids, like kids today. They have it hard. I feel like they have it harder in ways because of the technology. What do you think about that?
I think technology, surely right now we're connecting, but over the last 25 years, think about this boon of technology and e-connection. But one of the things I began to notice, here I live near Silicon Valley, is most people that are so many IT people and are avoidance. All they do is think code. They're highly intelligent people, and so you get all these highly intelligent but avoidance style programmers creating apps for attachment. This was a formula. Wouldn't it be great to have a chat bot? That's not for the brains. Most times texting is empty calories. There's a lot of avoidance built right into the dating apps and the way they connect. And what does that create? It creates either more avoidance or anxiety.
Yes. That is, I see that now that you explain it. So yeah, it's true.
Think about it. You and I grew up at a time when you went out and played with your friends. Now, 80% of attachment is noticing subtle facial muscles around eyes and mouth that signal attachment. We have over 200, I think it's 12 muscles in our face, most of which don't move bones. Why? Attachment signals. This is our attachment signals. So you write a text and people wonder, this is one of the things, I don't understand it. An argument broke out because how many facial muscles are you seeing on a text? Not many. And so you can't read it. And what the
I mean,
attachment,
that's what the emojis express, right? Is like a muscle movement in the face, like a smile, a frown, an eyebrow up or down, a mouth open with, like that or whatever.
exactly.
They're like trying to like emojify
Back in the 90s, the corporate
attachment.
world didn't, there was a huge debate in corporate America. Why are all these fights happening in corporate America when we got email? We thought it was going to make things easier. Oh, no, people read in their attachment. If someone's feeling anxious and you go, I'll see you later, right? Somebody goes, later, how much later? Oh my God, later? What did I do? And then the avoidance go, I'll see you later. And you're thinking, maybe in a few days, and they want to see you in a couple months. And then the
Bye-bye.
the security saying, oh, they're seeing later. Good, I'm going to see them.
Yeah.
Now, the attachment style will read whatever it is. And I have to tell couples, stay away from the text argument, because nothing good will happen there. Technology has an implicitly avoidant side to it.
Yeah, that's a really nice, like that's a clear way of explaining it.
Well, think about the new Zoom calls. The new Zoom calls, and I've been discussing, and I'm not the only one in this. So you're there and you're talking, and it's a good way of communicating. God bless it during COVID, right? And a lot of my business is on Zoom. But when you're on these calls, suddenly you begin to notice that on many calls, 80, 90% of the people are listening, but their video was turned off. Now, how many of us, back when we did live events, ever walked into a room in which 90% of our audience was doing this?
Yeah.
Now, nobody did that. There isn't it. And now if you're in a room, if you're in a Zoom room and you're wondering, there's one, people aren't feeling seen because they're not seen. So they're not feeling connected. I can't read their facial attachments. I can't see where their reactions are, right? And worse, if you can't see people and you're in the room, you don't implicitly, some persons, well, I don't know what they're thinking or feeling. And if you can't see them, you don't feel safe.
Oh, right.
Implicitly. So if, there is a way that Zoom is creating connection, but people, when they do this thing, I'm at the store, they're adding avoidant things to it.
Right. They're avoiding something.
Yeah. And you have to invite people to turn it on. Some people just simply won't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. So they're the more avoidant people that want to not be, they're adding avoidant.
No, a lot of them are anxious.
So that's the anxious piece.
Well, what I'm finding out, it has an avoidant effect, but the technology says, oh, I don't have to be seen. That could be an anxious. Oh my God, if I'm seen, what will happen to me? You can have.
So depending on the circumstance, it's going to be, and that's why live connection is so valuable. And I think we're going to have to work. Kind of like everything takes this cycle. Have you ever noticed that everything takes a cycle? What was commonplace and cheap and easy and accessible at one point is now the premium.
Yes.
Right. So for example, it's now a premium usually in businesses to have a phone number attached so that you can call someone.
Yes.
Get an answer versus do it through the system of like email me, right? There's a lot of companies that they don't even have the customer service that was, or the reception person to receive you. Like that was just commonplace, in the 80s, 90s, early 2000s in businesses particularly. Yeah. And now to have a reception, someone to receive you, it's like, that's rare.
It is. That's the more avoidant way that, technology says, well, we just have a chat bot do it for us.
Yeah.
And how many of us really grew up to have a chat box? Right? Well, I can't wait to have a chat box conversation.
I mean, I think that it's going to be very interesting to see all these companies. Like I'm I've been doing a lot of studying about migration patterns of people where they're living, right? Like, so I live in Southern California, Los Angeles County. It's really interesting. There's a massive homeless problem, massive. I mean, not to mention many other states ship their homeless to Southern California. I mean, if I was homeless, I would want to live in Southern California because it's mild and there's no snow. There's not a ton of rain.
You'll die in the winter in Montana if you're
I
homeless.
mean, it really, like, and it breaks my heart. And there's encampments underneath all the overpasses. My friend called me the other day, like, well, not the other day, but they called me and they were like, yeah, when we're walking our little girl to school, this was when they were in school, they'd have to navigate defecation that was on the street and homeless situations.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a problem. And I'm not sure. I know love will somehow solve that problem. Loving examples of like how to like approach to that. I'm not sure what will solve it, but people are leaving in droves to migrate to places because they don't have to be in the office. They don't need to live near their work as much because they just don't, or
Mhm. Yeah.
these huge office buildings are going to go empty. New York City has dropped by 35% occupancy. I mean, I'm just like, where is this going to go? And how does this make our lives better with the migration? And how is it like, maybe they'll get to live a life that they love. They want to be near the beach, or they want to live by their family, and they can, live in Montana or in, Minnesota and still work on the East Coast rates or West Coast rates. That's going to change things. I think it's going to level out a lot, but I'm thinking to myself, like, how are these migration going to change people loving their own lives, for example?
Well, no, what you're talking about is, this whole migration. There's going to be a lot of things. I'll bet you governments start taxing. They already know that if you walk away, you're going to get it taxed in 2 states. Yeah, but the bigger thing here is what we're talking about are 2 different rights: a right to create your own experience and a right to separate and belong. Now,
Yeah.
if you're always working and you move away because you worked in Silicon Valley and you can take that really high pay rate and then move over to to Nevada where you can, hike and have a more life, eventually you've got that right to separate, but then you don't actually have the one-on-one stuff. And with people, and I think groups will have less, and we'll see less and less connectivity and creativity from the everyday interaction. There's so many things that you can walk up to the boss and say, over time, talk them at the where the break room is, and you get a feel for whether you want to put that idea out there.
Yeah,
And
like the water cooler idea, like the
yes,
things that happen around the water cooler.
yes,
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see, and more importantly, maybe feel how that change makes things better and maybe exasperates others. It's like, but I think it's important to even bring it to the thought, to your attention, because it's like, notice in your own life, like, how are these things changing? Now, I've worked from home for a long time, since
yeah,
2000. I mean, since 2004, essentially. Well, 3 or 4. I've worked from home.
yes,
And that was a time when I had to balance, being a mom of 2, and I had one on the way, and I had mentors, mostly um, people that were much, much older than me. And they all told me it was like suicide, like business suicide, that I would move my office home. And I was like, tough. If my clients currently didn't want me
mhm,
because I moved home, because I was able to do a better job for them, because I was able to do a better job for my family and being closer and only having like 50 steps to the office, then they're not clients for me. Like, I had to be willing to let let that go. And as a matter of fact, I was welcomed with joy with a lot of my clients. They totally wanted to come out
Yeah.
to the office at the farm because they were like, it's like a breakout here. I'm like, yeah. But
And
it's
why
like,
is that so?
that's,
Because you have such a great attachment style, Star, that they are attached to you. Now let's just break this experience down. They love being in your presence. I've been to your home, right? With you and Jim, right? I
yeah.
got those steaks, man. Jim does great steaks. We're just letting you know.
Yes.
He does, man. He's good.
He does
You
so
know,
many things great. And
and,
that's
and
one of
people
them.
naturally seek attachment, right? So if you had been avoidant, I'll bet you that would have been a very different matter because they wouldn't have had that stronger connection to say, I'll drive 10 miles to speed with Star. Sure, shoot, yeah, you know. But
Yeah.
if they didn't have that strong connection, because maybe you were totally implicitly professional, and then they wouldn't have, they said, well, I can just go to the guy down the street, because people will seek a connection. Notice, like, for instance, one of the things I've noticed is, have you ever walked into a Starbucks about 2, 3 in the afternoon and noticed all the people staring with their cup of coffee, and they've been there sometimes for hours with their laptop? A lot of these people are avoidants that are trying to get the faintest hit, at least someone's in the room. They're online, they're not getting their attachment. So they go, their needs met, or they're disconnected. In some parts, unconsciously, I at least want to know someone's in the room, like the little child who is separating, but at least wants somebody in the room.
Yeah. That's an
This is a
interesting
right
kind of
to
think
separate
about
it
like
along, balancing itself. All online, all separate, and some part says, let's just do it. So at
that's
Starbucks,
interesting.
so there's a warm body. I mean, that most people don't break it down, but if you understand attachment, you can just feel people trying to balance that missing right to connect by going to Starbucks for 4 hours and having, lattes.
Yeah. It's interesting when you do know it, you can start to look for it. Because, our experiences as humans, our job is to feel. And a lot of time we spend, when you look at it, we don't want to feel because there's some part of that feeling that may end up being work for us.
Yes.
So it's hard. That's why, like, you got to do the work. We're here. Like, I have this feeling that, like, I'm a human having a spiritual experience, and that my experience is all about feeling. And school is earth, like earth school,
Earth
like earth
school.
university.
Yes.
Like, I'm supposed to learn lessons. I'm supposed to, like, develop myself, and I'm supposed to be in service of others, which is the best version of ourselves, is when we give the best of ourselves that we have to others, and we save for ourselves too, because we have to be able, like you said, to give and receive. But I've gotten a lot of criticism, and I'd love to know what you think about this, where I'm like, you can't love anyone more than you love yourself. And I've gotten a lot of criticism, like, where people said, well, I certainly hope that's not true. And I'm like, oh, that's true. What do you think about that?
I break it down, and I almost never tell someone to love themselves, like when I'm working sessions. The more
Well,
the
yeah.
more pragmatic thing, what that equals is giving yourself those 4 feelings and giving it to another. When you say love yourself, do you carry those 4 feelings in you so that you can give them to yourself and then give them to others? And what I notice working with couples, say you notice there's a communication problem. So a lot of, like, therapy we're using beautiful things like cognitive behavior therapy, says, well, let's just give them a better skill set. Let's give them nonviolent communication. But what I noticed, you can give a couple some new skills, but they will still give whatever underlying feeling is there. If they will do it in just a way that unwelcome or unworthy shows up in the tone of voice or the facial, they'll do the skill set, but their attachment styles, either by tone of voice or positioning of their body, will give another feeling. It's not just, oh yes, the manual says, so tell me how you feel. It's like, okay, so How do you feel? Those are two different, I just asked you the same question, but I gave you two different feelings. The
Exactly.
feeling will always come out. It's like this, when my sister and I both had the same third grade teacher, except 3 years apart. Now, she took after my mother, who was borderline, and my mom didn't understand welcome with joy at any. Looking back, she just didn't welcome anybody. She was an equal opportunity employer when it came to unwelcome, so to speak.
Ouch.
So Mrs. Graham, and she told me this story in my 20s when I was speaking in my hometown, and she just happened to see the kid 20 years
Oh my
later,
God,
right?
that's so
And
cool.
I looked, like, oh my God,
Hi.
it's her, right? And there was this big hug and joy 20 years later,
Oh,
because, and I mean, when I think about the most safe time of my life, it was in Mrs. Graham's room. Now, she would do all sorts of little like third grade lectures. And what she did is she would bring in people. There were a constant stream of visitors. So if you talked about flowers, some florists would be walking in. You're talking about gerbils, somebody that runs a pet store would come in. I mean, I don't know how she did it. She was the most connected woman on the planet. And there was a steady stream, and there would be a greeter of the day. The greeter of the day. You'd hear the knock on the door. She'd tell you ahead of time at 8:15, 8:30, you're the greeter of the day. And then your job was to go and open the door and welcome them in.
oh,
Well,
that's nice.
so when she gets my sister, who took off more after my mother, because she's a girl being socialized, and she's, oh, this is my model, right? Versus me. And I said, anything in the opposite direction's got to be good, right?
Yes.
Mrs. Graham tells me she thought, well, I've got another version of Gary, right? I got another little Gary with her sister, and which, I was always teacher's pet, it just was, except fourth grade. Okay, except my, other than fourth grade.
Yeah.
But then, and she says, you're greeter of the day. And my sister says, what do I do? She says, well, you go and you open the door, and you go, welcome in. She goes, okay. So about 1:00, knock comes on the door. Says, Graham nods to my sister. Sister gets up, opens the door, says, well, come in. Same skill set, just a little different feeling. And Mrs. Graham told me I was never so shocked in my life. And I'm going, this is not going to be a repeat.
Oh, my heart breaks for that little girl.
She never, that's right. And that's the feeling she was given. Everybody got that feeling. And it comes out. I just noticed that by lots of ways, if you haven't restored the attachment style first, and you can't just up and give couples skills, or
it's like putting lipstick on a pig. You can't just try to, it's like, it's got to be, intent, like integral.
Yes. I mean, John Gottman at the University of Washington, a big researcher, came up with, he was able to track, over 3,000 couples for over 40 years of research, and proved that what he called the masters did certain things that predicted lasting. And then there were the disasters. And these were all predictable with math equations. We knew that contempt in a relationship predicts the demise of that relationship within 6.8 years with 94% predictability. We know that a harsh startup predicts a less than a good outcome for any discussion 96% of the time. We know that 82% of the time that men don't share influence in a relationship, they have a name for them, divorcees. Okay, I mean, and then we learned also what the masters do. But what John doesn't say in his research is he competency modeled the skills of the masters. Who are the masters? The securely attached.
Right.
And the disasters are the anxious or the avoidance, who often lead with, criticism, defensiveness, contempt, stonewalling, and a bunch of other things. Now, if you try these feelings created a skill set that people give and receive. If you try to give that skill set and there's no feelings that generate it, or you got opposite ones that give the opposite, You can't just transport the skill set of the masters, the secure, onto the anxious and worry, and think it's the same thing, because skills grew out of feelings organically. If you don't have the feelings, there will be no organics in that relationship.
Yeah. That reminds me from like the work that I'm doing. It's kind of the difference between knowledge and wisdom,
Yes.
right? Like it's not just the knowledge that's important. It's the application, the context, the true expansion of understanding that idea or feeling. So
Yes.
it's like we have to have an experience of ourselves in these feelings to become secure. It's not just in our head, like from here up. It has to be connected
Yes.
here down. And that's why our work, why we've always been so connected, and why like my work is all about like just practicing the feelings, the
Yeah.
better feelings, like removing the yucky feelings and replacing it with a feeling that's good, basically.
Yeah. And those feelings are somatic. They
They're
are
important.
their body. They start in bodies. That's why when people get triggered, it starts in the body.
Mm-hmm. You start to
It's not
feel
an
it.
accident. It's not an accident. We know that mirror neurons that allow me to step in and go, gosh, it looks like Star's having a good time. It looks like I've said this long enough. I may need to change. And these little things we're calibrating. The mirror neurons that tell us what someone's feeling, what sort of mood they're in. We found out that they literally have to check in with the body to find out, oh, that's what that feeling is. It checks in with the database of stored experiences. Oh, he's drinking. So he sees you like this and you go,
Mm.
I bet you Gary must be feeling thirsty. What your mirror sees intention, goes down to your body, goes, what does that look like? Oh, that looks like thirst.
Yeah.
And then you come up and go, if you're not connected with your body, you go, well, gosh, was Gary really liking the graphics on here?
Yeah. I mean, the body never lies.
Yes.
And it's interesting. I have a course in Stars What Would Love Do. And I took this group of people through this course. I think it's like 2.5 months. And we go through it, and it's literally like learning different technologies that are out there that people don't know. And one of them is the muscle testing,
Yes.
right? Which is the same kinesthesiology, which is the same technology that is available to like naturopaths when they are trying to get people out of their brain, right?
Mm-hmm.
Their heads and into their bodies, asking them questions that they may not know even on a conscious level, but maybe subconscious. And it's like yes and no questions, right? You can even test yourself. It's like knowing that that's available is also a way of really loving yourself. And I think to myself, like, I learned it in my 40s. I wished I had it in my, struggling teens and 20s, where I was like making these far reaching decisions. Like knowing the wisdom of the body is a critical piece of it's safe to be here. It's safe to be in my body. I'm loving myself by asking and honoring my body, by respecting it and saying, what does my body need?
Yes.
So,
Your body is, for the most part, the big truth teller.
yeah.
It's not sophisticated enough to lie. And I mean, you can literally, I mean, there's a technique I sometimes teach singles or couples. How do you tell your truth? It's called truth untruth, right? And it's very simple. Just all you have to do is I can say, I know you like chocolate. You like chocolate, right? Right?
I do like chocolate.
Okay. And so what I want you to notice, if just say after me, I like to, and notice in your body what you feel and where you feel it. I want you to say what you're true, just notice, I like chocolate.
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 What did you feel in your body and where did you feel it?
I would say that I just couldn't help but smile because I do like chocolate. I'm like a little bit of the taste buds were like, I could have
Mhm.
some chocolate.
Well, people will feel like it felt good.
Yeah, warm.
Warm right here. Warm right here.
Hmm.
So erase, erase, erase. What color gray is that wall?
It's purple.
It's purple. Okay, it looks great.
Well, it's a gray purple.
Good.
It's
So
got
that's a
gray in it.
breakthrough.
Yeah, for
That's
sure.
breakthrough. Sorry.
Yeah.
So now I want you to say after me and notice what you feel in your body and where you feel it.
Okay.
I don't like chocolate.
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 What did you feel in your body?
I felt like a gut punch.
A gut punch. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. That's your untruth.
Yeah.
Now, if you had come to me, say you had been a single, says, I've got this relationship, there's some things going on, not going on. We're on the 15th. I'm not sure where that should go. My God, he's a doctor, but there's this other stuff. He seems to be checking out other women. But, he's a doctor, what's my truth? What's my untruth? One little phrase is you say, so you think about, then you say, okay, now think about staying in that relationship. Say, I want to stay in the relationship. I want to stay in
the relationship.
Okay, which one does it feel like? Your truth or your untruth?
Right.
And a lot of times they'll go, oh my God.
Then you can use when you were testing chocolate or something you love, right?
Yes.
So then you test it with a more complex thing.
Yeah. Go, oh my God, it feels more like it's not my truth. Or they might say, no, it feels more like my truth. Okay.
It's when people are disconnected from their own bodies that they have to start feeling the pathways to connect to them, and then when you start feeling, it can be overwhelming for people that haven't felt for a long, long time.
Oh, tell me about it.
Oh man.
Oh man,
that's the work. That is work.
It is work. When I first started doing this major transformational work, right after I realized I was the problem, I talk about that, 15 years ago. And I thought, and I got out of my head and I got to calibrating feelings. I didn't know who I was. There was a period of 6-8 months where I had such an identity crisis. I really had a huge missing right to exist because after all, I wasn't named for 3 weeks. Stay up in your head, and all that stuff. And when I first got into feelings, it was so disorienting that I truly didn't know who I was anymore.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is I remember thinking, boy, I want to change my life. I want to have a different fate with love and all this. And I was complaining to the universe. Oh my God, I don't even know who I am. I got a PhD and I don't know who I am. And I didn't, but I just signed up for change. I didn't know about this. And I felt the universe saved me one day. Okay, so let me get this thing straight, Gary. You asked me to lead you along a path that you could actually have love and more success, and you thought you were going to stay the same person. How's that work?
You ask yourself the right questions, Gare.
I looked at it and go, you don't always have to be so right.
Like, what?
And then I realized, my God, this is the path.
Yeah.
It can be disorienting, but it's actually reorienting. Thank God. I mean,
I know, right?
Yeah.
Well, you know what, Gare? I think that we just need to keep doing the work, doing our work out there, getting it out there. I'm so glad that you were with me today. I have one question before that, will you come back again?
I will come back again. I will come. Star, you know better. My God, I've only been on, I was on your physical stage 5 times.
I know, right?
Friends for life, my friend.
I know we are. Yay.
And I am definitely coming back after.
Okay, because there's always so much I want to talk to you about.
Jim does, man.
There's always so much for us to talk about. And I know that we have many more topics to cover, but I want you to define what you think love means.
What love means?
Yeah, what does love mean to you?
When I haven't really thought in terms of love means. What love means is you have the home port in somebody else's heart. You can go out and do your life. And there is someone who is a safe harbor. Ships come in to have a safe harbor from the storms of life. Love is the high, the safety net under the high wire act of our aspirations, and it's where we give and receive this beautiful feeling of cherished, and cherished is where you see an essence to that human being that you love. That could be friends, it can be your intimate ones that you can't get elsewhere. There's just something unique about them.
Mhm.
And like when you think about it, there's all sorts of guys like Jim, who's tall, good looking and all that other stuff. But there's something about Jim that's just
Yeah.
special. It's that feeling. And to me, the heart and soul of love is feeling cherished, protected. And from there, of course, you're honored and you're worthy and you're welcomed and you're empowered.
Yeah, that's a beautiful definition. I like that one.
Yeah.
I mean, I like all of them, but you're so articulate, Gary. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank
And
you.
I love you. I'll see you soon.
Back at you. Bye-bye.
Hmm.
Like that.
Yeah, right. I love you. I'll talk to you later.
Bye-bye.
I want to say goodbye.